Can the fuel mixture screw cause a hanging idle on a four-stroke dirt bike? The answer is yes, and there are 8 ways that I'm going to talk about how this can happen. A hanging idle is simply when you give it gas and you let off the throttle, the idle or the RPM takes a while to settle down, so it's rum, rum. This is not only annoying, but it can be dangerous because when you let off the gas and it wants to keep accelerating and you want to stop, you might end up slamming on the brakes or running into a tree. And the fuel mixture screw is not to be confused with the idle screw. The fuel mixture screw is the fine-tuning adjustment for the pilot jet, which controls idle to roughly quarter turn throttle. And on a 4-stroke carb, it's generally underneath and on the front half of the carburetor, so towards the engine side. It usually requires a small flat blade screwdriver, or you can swap it out for an aftermarket one with an adjustable head. The first possible cause of a hanging idle is the fuel screw fell out. This would cause an air leak, making it run lean, and this can happen if your fuel screw is too far out. So once you get more than like 2.5 or 3 turns out from all the way in, it's not going to do much for tuning, and it's not going to have enough threads on, so it's more likely to vibrate and fall out. Cause number 2 is the fuel screw is incorrectly adjusted. A hanging idle is usually caused by a lean, jetting condition, or an air leak. So if the fuel screw is adjusted too lean, depending on your bike and the temperature and other conditions, it might have that hanging idle. And if you want to learn how to tune it, in just a few minutes, I got a free guide in the description below. Cause number 3 is the tip broke off of the fuel screw. The stock fuel screw is brass and it's not likely to break, but if you have it off and you're messing with it and you put it back up there and shove it in too hard at an angle, it can snap off that end, causing it not to function properly and have that hanging idle. Cause number 4 is a missing O-ring. Fuel screws, they allow more fuel into the mixture and they're blocking out the air. So if that rubber O-ring, if it's missing, well, then you're going to have an air leak causing it to run too lean and possibly have that hanging idle. Cause number 5 is when the O-ring is installed sideways. So it's lodged in there because it's really easy when you're trying to put that fuel screw in and that little rubber O-ring hits the edge of the carb just barely and it turns sideways, gets lodged in there so it's not properly sealing. Cause number 6 is when the O-ring is installed in the wrong order. The proper installation when you have the fuel screw is you put the spring on and then you put the flat washer and then the O-ring. So if you put the O-ring on first or before that washer, it's probably not going to seal out that air, causing an air leak and get that hanging idle. Cause number 7 is if the rubber O-ring is hard. A new one is soft and pliable and it'll compress and seal well when it's in the carb. So an old one that's hard, it's not going to move very much, so it might not have the greatest seal, causing an air leak and that hanging idle. And in that case, you just replace it with a new one. Cause number 8 is if the O-ring is cracked. Even if it's soft, if it's cracked, broken, or a chunk of it is missing, it's not going to seal properly, so you're going to have that hanging idle from an air leak. I know these sound like very little things, but I've run into all of them when tuning 4-strokes, and these race bikes with these pumper carbs are very finicky if just one little thing is off. But if you've tried all of these and it still hasn't fixed it, well, you should check out my other video here on why your 4-stroke is having an hanging idle. I'm Kelly Figure from MXHideout. Ride safe, have fun.